welcome back. I am Hlonipha Mokoena, and I'm a professor at the Wits Institute for Social and Economic Research. And you are joining us for African history, why Africa matters. And in this last lesson, lesson number 4, we are going to be exploring further the topic of cities and wealth in Africa. So there are several reasons why the urban history of Africa has not been written about as extensively and not known. The first reason is obviously that people made the assumption that all of Africa was agricultural, but also that all of Africa was egalitarian. What that means is that there was an assumption that all Africans lived in societies in which there was no class structure and everyone was equal. But there was also this, I would call it the jungle understanding, which is still available, which is still prevalent even today, which is the assumption that Africa is a jungle. Africa is not a jungle. And in fact, Africa is the originator of the concrete jungle. So the idea is that many parts of the African continent were actually hosts to these humongous major cities that were created by our ancestors. So if you had to draw a map of Africa, you would essentially, with the exception of North Africa, you would be able to draw almost a triangular shape across the African continent. Cities of West Africa, cities of East Africa, and then cities of Southern Africa. So in East Africa, you had the famous Ethiopian city of Aksum. And there are various ways of thinking about the origins of Aksum, but essentially the Ethiopian Empire was based in that city. It was a Christian city. And then you fly south to Southern Africa, and there you'll find the cities of Mapungubwe, the city of Zimbabwe, and the various sort of, as I may have mentioned the term earlier, the Shashe Limpopo River Basin, which was also the foundation of several stone, in the case of our region, many of them were often stone cities, and this is why we know that they existed. As I have mentioned earlier, in West Africa, there were several major empires. So you had empires like the Gao Empire, the Mali Empire, the Mande Empire, the Benin Empire, and all of those empires depended on wealth, and many of them built monumental sites. So for example, Benin City, which is in Nigeria, was only destroyed in 1897 by the British. So that is less than 200 years ago. So these major cities were often built as concentric circles. They were built using what in mathematics they call fractals. So essentially you would have one big circle, and then within that circle you would have smaller circles. Or if they were built as squares, you would have one big square, and then within that square you would have smaller and smaller and smaller squares until you get to the center. So then what does that tell us? It tells us that our ancestors understood mathematics, which is why they built cities using fractals. And the other aspect of these cities was that because they were urban, they depended on someone else bringing in the basic supplies, food, water, etc. So what does it mean to say that Africans are urban? It means that many Africans were involved in economic activities that could sustain them while living in an urban environment. They were artisans, they were musicians, they were court ladies and court gentlemen. All the things that you can imagine happen in a major city, entertainers, child minders, nannies, etc. All those kinds of jobs that today we have in modern cities, they were there in pre-colonial Africa as well.